Tony, welcome to my world, the micro world of Willard Wigan. I'm the creator of the smallest artwork in history. The smallest sculptures the world has ever known. Smaller than a human blood cell. A motorbike inside a stubble of hair from my chin. And I'm going to tell you something even more frightening. I can go smaller than that. The Queen of England asked me to make a little crown for her on the head of the pin. You don't have to explain my work. It drives people into this frenzy of disbelief. This is what I do. I breathe like this. Where the skill comes in is where you have to control your heartbeat. Wait for the pulse to stop.
It's one small step for man.
Inside our world, there is another.
For many years, I've never told people what I did.
An alternate reality in a different scale.
There's history here, there's evolution here.
A world with its own set of rules.
Here at Bolton, there is a miniature version of itself.
An escape into another dimension.
This is our miniature Hamburg.
You know, what do we got? Toys R Us? Absolutely correct. Our miniatures are us.
Welcome to Miniature. Once upon a time, in prehistoric Europe, a group of primitive humans are looking for shelter to escape the impending frost. They discover this cave and decide to move in. From generation to generation, they return here, but then they vanish. What they leave behind is a mystifying collection of miniatures, the world's oldest art.
When it comes to the objects we actually find, they're invariably miniature depictions.
Not far from that prehistoric cave is the University of Tübingen in southern Germany, where Nicholas Conrad is a professor of archaeology.
Here we've got the earliest examples of animals from the Ice Age. It's a really special kind of art. And even though they're very old, 40,000 years ago, they're masterpieces. Look at the musculature and markings, the cross-hatching, the dots. It's very, very easy to imagine that someone must have carved it, perhaps taking about 100 hours to produce it using flint tools. And it's something you can imagine, the touch, the feel, even the smell of the Ice Age fires. Of course, it's our imagination, but we have a lot of evidence to try to piece that together. And at least for me, when you see then a depiction of a mammoth or a lion, animals that don't live here anymore because they're extinct, then you know you're operating in a different world. And that is very cool.
This is the largest of these mammoth ivory carvings. And it's also the most surprising.
We see depictions of things that don't even exist in the real world. They weren't just depicting lions, they were depicting mixtures of humans and lions. And what does that tell us? That tells us that this whole spectrum of complex behavior, symbolic communication, storage of information in material culture, all that stuff that is part of regular life today was established at least 40,000 years ago.
So this is a replica of the set from Alfred Hitchcock's movie Rear Window, which is all about looking into other people's windows and seeing the stories there. To me, it was the perfect example of what miniatures do.
Louise Krasnowitz is a talented miniaturist. And she's also an anthropologist who specializes in American popular culture.
My fascination with miniatures on a sort of an academic level is we've always used miniatures. Whatever culture you go into, you can find examples of how they used miniatures. In some ancient cultures, you would make amulets, miniaturization of power into a small object that you can carry around and that you can hide so that your enemies don't know you have the power because it's in an amulet that you stick inside your clothes. There are just thousands of these examples. It's just absolutely fascinating how miniatures have been used throughout the world and through time.
From early childhood, we are surrounded by them.
We should put the barbecue right in a chair here.
We learn to negotiate the real world first in miniature.
Over here.
We develop dexterity in our hands and our minds. They become intimate friends.
So children will talk to their dolls as if they were real. That as if is what's crucial. It's not the it is an as if. And that as if is magical.
This magical as if has animated miniatures for thousands of years. When archaeologists dug into the tombs of ancient Egypt, they discovered a miniature world. 5,000 years ago, artisans created an entire community of tiny servants and workers. But these were never meant to be handled or even seen. They were buried with their masters to serve them in the afterlife.
Anthropologists call it animism. Once you give something a human form like this, in our mind, in our imagination, it comes to life.
It's just a few days before Christmas in Naples, Italy. And the locals are doing some last-minute shopping to prepare for a centuries-old ritual. This is a gigantic miniature market where Neapolitans come to get everything they need for their nativity scenes. In Naples, they're called presepe, and they become an art form after St. Francis of Assisi first recreated the birth of Jesus at Christmas in 1223.
Qua siamo nel cuore di Napoli, al centro storico. I fratelli Capuano siamo Vincenzo e Luciano Capuano, io e mio fratello. Siamo nati proprio sul presepe e sul pastore, cioè praticamente noi da piccolini, già mio padre, mio nonno, poi il bisnonno. Noi come famiglia stiamo seguendo la stessa tradizione.
But somewhere along the way, the Neapolitan presepe has become as much about Naples as it is about the famous birthday.
Cioè noi viviamo proprio di questo. Noi viviamo di questo e con la nostra fantasia poi riproponiamo la Napoli del Settecento. Non quella di oggi non ci piace tanto, è molto più bella quella del Settecento. Sì, una cosa, invece prima anche i costumi, come vestivano prima nel Settecento, sono vestiti bellissimi.
There are hundreds of artists like Luciano in Naples. And every Christmas, the very best form an exhibition dedicated to the presepe. Salvatore Sabatini is one of them.
Questo è il tipico esempio di un presepe realizzato nel 1700, che poi anche questo è un altro simbolo particolare. In realtà identifica la vittoria della religione cristiana sul paganesimo.
The most complete Neapolitan presepes include a darker side, where a different story is unfolding.
Quindi trovi l'ubriacone seduto al tavolo, in genere sopra la taverna c'erano le meretrici, cioè c'erano le prostitute. Tutto il fabbricato della taverna, il piano terra e il primo piano, era identificato come la scena del male.
When you have sacred stories told through nativity scenes, it's bringing those stories back to our everyday lives, but in miniature form. But if you talk to most people, they wouldn't recognize that as they're being involved with miniatures. That's the thing. Every household in the world has miniatures in it. And if we start recognizing those as miniatures, that's when we can say, okay, what do miniatures do? You know, why do we have them? Why do they fascinate us? It's not just because they're cute.
Like all artists, the miniaturist is always looking for inspiration. Lauren George has found hers in the Big Easy.
When I walk around New Orleans early in the morning, I'm just continually amazed by the beauty, the mystery, and the wonder, the ivy and the Spanish moss. Yeah, it's an inspiring city.
As soon as she graduated from NYU, Lauren moved to New Orleans, hoping the city would become her muse and help her launch an unlikely career in the back room of a candy store.
These are some of my best-selling little creations. I make these tiny books. And these are supposed to have the appearance of like a miniature scholar has just left their table in the midst of their studies. When I was growing up, my grandpa made all of his girlfriends, all the ladies in his life, dollhouses. So my sister and I got a dollhouse, my mom got a dollhouse, and then, you know, we had to fill them up. So we kept busy making things when we were little for our dollhouses. When I got into graduate school, I needed some sort of gainful employment for my hands just to keep me from being idle and getting into trouble. So I started listing these things on Etsy, these little miniature accessories. You know, it's all about creating a piece that makes people look twice and also rewards further inspection. So this is a miniature cabinet of curiosity, and they're actually the modern precursor to both museums and dollhouses. Miniatures were often part of traditional cabinets of curiosity, where wealthy people would house treasures from their adventures, you know, things they had collected. It was a way of displaying your wealth and also showing the control and the power that you had over your world. This is just shrinking down the entire concept of cabinets of curiosity down into something that can fit into the palm of your hand. From the bottom to the top, we have a Fayou mummy portrait, so it's a combination of Roman and ancient Egyptian tradition. Bones from a rodent of unusual size, a couple of mysterious bottles, and then a little bird perched. An extinct bird, of course, you know, it has to be an extra rare species. Miniatures and dollhouses often through history have been ways of reinforcing outdated roles that women are supposed to be conforming to. But it's fun to take those expectations and subvert them a little bit, to create miniature dollhouse scenes that represent a more eccentric or liberated personality.
I've talked to many miniaturists about this. You need to know how to do everything. You need to paint, You need to be able to 3D print things. You need to do woodworking. You need to know how to draw things at scale. You need to make little doll clothes, just about everything. And so miniaturists are some of the most versatile artists that I know.
For many, many years, I really never told people what I did. It was too hard to explain. Nowadays, I basically just tell people I build really expensive dollhouse furniture.
Craftsman Bill Robertson has developed the uncanny ability to reproduce priceless antiques.
Often the case is that my miniature will sell for more than the original. That happens a lot.
Not only are his works incredibly detailed, they actually work.
To look through it, you unscrew the eyepiece. This is a gentleman's tool set. The miniature, which is made of Mopani, it's filled with all the original tools. The tools actually work, things like the plane cuts. There's something about the intense amount of work in a small space. I have to make every part. You can't buy any of them. I'm the little geeky kid with the plastic pocket pouch that is building little models. I've always been drawn to it. The small detailed things and groups of things. And I've just always wanted to have a little row of something. The neat thing is the sound. They just make a unique sound. I think the smallest dovetails I've ever cut were about 12 thousandths of an inch. Now that fits the way it's supposed to fit, perfectly tight. I love to find the really cool thing I've never seen before. This is an architect's classroom from the turn of the century. One of the really fun parts about this were the wastebaskets. It took me like 27 hours to solder the first one together. And there's a number of them in this room. I came up here one day and there was an elderly man standing here looking at it. And when he realized I built the room, he said, I was in this room. I was trained here. But he couldn't have been. Because this room is a creation of my imagination and research. This room didn't exist.
Bill Robertson's architect studio forms part of the collection of the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures in Kansas City, Missouri.
These artists spend their lives making these really beautiful works of art. And the thing that I love about miniatures is that there are so many layers of stories. When you're looking at something that's really good, it just gives you this tingle up your spine and you feel euphoric about it. Our collection is a collection of fine-scale miniatures, part of a fine-scale miniature movement that began in the 1970s for adult collectors. No matter who you are and where you are, this small version of our world is relatable to you. There's a sense of wholeness in looking at a miniature. It helps us to understand our own world.
It looks like a chair, it certainly feels like a chair, but it really hasn't got the functions of a chair. It's an abstraction of what chairness is all about. If I see a chair like this, I'm just gonna sit on it. I know that's what it's for. I see this, I start thinking, oh, it represents something that I really never reflected upon. The fact that we've made something with our own ingenuity and our own imagination to fit the human body so that it can relax or not have to stand up. This reminds me of it. This does not.
This is what started it. This is a hardtop convertible. These give me such happiness on so many levels. There's history here, there's evolution here. My name is Michael Paul Smith, and I'm a model maker and a miniaturist. I didn't have formal model making skills, but I had a 300-car die-cast car collection sitting on my shelf getting dusty, and it was like, these need context. So we're going to do a 1920s, early to mid-20s rural station. It's still kind of a mystery to me. Okay, there's the sun coming, that's good. That'll give us some shadows. One day I had a car on a table and the early morning sunlight lit it, and I said, oh, that's kind of a nice photo. And I had my little camera and took it, and I went, oh, natural sunlight. Oh, that might be good. So I went across the street and I had no idea what I was doing. And I took the pictures and ran home and downloaded them, and it was the moment. And I must have been yelping or shrieking because people say, are you all right? You know, and it's like, I did it.
Michael Paul Smith was inspired, and what emerged was a miniature suburban paradise.
My parents would say, go out and play and make sure you're home before it gets dark. We didn't lock our doors, the car keys were in the car. And that's what this is all about. And it really just went from there. Over a year, only 1,000 people saw it, you know, the whole wide world. But then one person posted it in a magazine, and I got 10 million hits.
Michael's photos had gone viral, and waves of messages overwhelmed his inbox.
Because there's no people, the viewer is the only person in the picture, and I think that makes it safe for them, and they feel comfortable bringing their own memories into that. The magical part for me is that there's a certain vulnerability that happens when people see my miniatures. I still haven't figured it out. I was just playing. I'm still playing.
Miniatures are about building worlds that you invite other people to come in and visit. I really think of it as a form of storytelling. So what is the story that you're going to see if you come into my world?
Hi, Tony. Come on in.
Cheryl Teamer is a New Orleans lawyer and executive, and this is her dollhouse.
I really just wanted to tell an interesting story about a part of history in New Orleans that most people don't know anything about. The people of New Orleans had 3 transitions. First, they were French, then they were given to the Spanish, and then it was sold to the Americans. I decided to tell the story of the free women of color, which is an interesting story. French and Spanish men frequently took an island woman or a local woman for their wife. And so in New Orleans, unlike many cities, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, half of the population was biracial. There was a lot of conflict between people who were somewhat European in their traditions and the Americans. And so they used to call the Americans the carpetbaggers. Well, this is the story that matches the house. So it's the story of a family of free women of color who all live in New Orleans in the house. And this gives you, it starts by saying the free women of color accepted their fate, made the most of their circumstances, and leveraged their resources to change the course of history.
The miniaturization of some phenomenon or thing is really important for people to understand the world. It becomes a way for you to be able to understand how the different parts of the world interact.
By the early 20th century, the world was becoming a complex place. And in Great Britain, their miniatures were too.
My name is Tim Dunn. I'm from London, but I grew up here in Buckinghamshire, where Beaconscott model village is. All across Britain, there are model villages just like this one. They let us connect with our past, our parents' past, or even our holidays past. I grew up very close to Beaconscott, just down the road. So from the age of about 3 or 4, I was being led down by my parents and with friends to look at the model trains and the model buildings and escaping this miniature wonderland of great big buildings to a 3 or 4-year-old.
Big one, little one.
And then when eventually it became sort of okay for me to work there, I ended up working there and playing trains.
A young Tim soon discovered that Beaconscott Model Village is an important piece of British history.
Back in 1929, Roland Callingham's obsession with model trains was taking over his house. Such was his obsession that his wife said, either the train set goes outside or you do. And he chose the train set. He commissioned what was then the most extraordinary model train set known to man. And at the same time, he's building a model village. This is the first time where you've got lots of bits of buildings and trains together. And they thought, let's open it up for charity, because he didn't need the money. He was independently wealthy. And a few people came to trickle in, and then a few more people came in, and then the palace hears about it. Princess Elizabeth, as she was back then, wants to come along. And they bring her on 3 successive years of her birthdays. The reason model villages work is because it upsets our notion of scale. A child suddenly has some power in an environment which can be quite scary. Over time, I've researched model villages and miniature towns. I wanted to find out if this Beaconscott was a local phenomenon or something more widespread. And it turned out that we weren't alone. And actually, this model phenomenon and model villages and model railways was far more widespread than I perhaps initially realised. It exploded across Britain. At least 120 different model villages. Beaconscott was one of the very first. It really is the grandfather of the model village movement. The Britain in front of us right now is an idealised version of Britain. It never really was quite like that. The steam trains ran on time. There's no strikes. There's the home team winning at cricket yet again, day after day after day. I think the model villages are part of British culture, and each one interprets Britain in its own special way. We're heading now to Bourton-on-the-Water, which is a charming little village in the Cotswolds.
The model village in Bourton-on-the-Water was opened in 1937 to celebrate the coronation of King George and to promote the local pub in whose backyard it was built.
started off as being an idea of having a miniature Swiss garden, some alpine sort of plants and some mountains. But as they put the river through the middle of the back garden, they realised the river actually paid resemblance to the river in the town itself. So quite quickly, they stopped building this alpine garden and instead started again of the model, but building a model of what the stuff that's really out there in the town. Craftsmen and surveyors went out about the town, taking photographs and detailed measurements of every single part of this town. And what you see is a result of that remarkable exercise in town miniaturization. What I love is that each of these models is actually built in the local stone. Here at Bolton, there is that wonderful thing that so few model villages really have, a miniature version of itself. You've got this model village over here in a model village. In there, there's a model of the model village of the model village. And in that, I think there might be a model village. I'm not quite sure. I'm a bit too scared to go and have a little look too closely. I might damage it.
Oh dear, a model village. Another model village.
Like every fad, the model village peaked and then became corny and passé.
As the time goes on, 1960s and the 70s, people are able to travel abroad. The little model villages aren't quite so appealing as the Costa del Sol.
Year after year, the number of model villages slowly dwindles. But back in central London, in the shadow of England's 21st century skyscrapers, there's an artist who's reinventing the model village as modern art.
I used to like going to model villages. I think I went to Bolton-on-the-Water, various ones, I can't remember where they were, but I used to like going to them.
Jimmy Cotty is setting up his model village underneath a rumbling railway line near Waterloo Station. He believes this better reflects modern Britain.
I didn't really like the way that the model villages were made. Some weird idea of what England is like. I don't really go along with that view. So maybe I'm trying to just improve on that a little bit.
Jimmy Cotty's model village is definitely not Bolton-on-the-Water.
This village is sort of about what happens when the police take over completely.
Jimmy is an award-winning music producer, film director, and artist. And he's returned to miniature after the success of his last series, Riot in a Jam Jar.
I like to show people behaving badly, really, in my world. I mean, these were inspired by some recent rioting and looting that happened in London. It's interesting watching that on TV and then coming back and making a model of that, and with the police just kind of standing around not knowing really what to do. They're not moving, so I wanted to set up a situation where everybody's standing still. It's like a 2-second loop in time, this.
Yep, direct hit.
Yeah! Well, last time we showed it, there's been quite a lot of petty crime happening. People were stealing the little people, but then we put this black stuff around, and it's a more interesting way to see it through a little hole. And you see it in mono as well, so you can't judge depth of field.
Is that square, Jimmy?
Yeah.
For this exhibition, Jimmy is adding a new piece to the town. It's a policeman's Tower of Babel that he and a crew of model builders will construct during the course of the exhibition, which opens in just a few short hours.
So, we're ready?
Yeah, we're ready. We're ready as we're ever going to be. don't know whether model villages are even art, but it's interesting to see people really engage with something. I've got their attention. People really are drawn into this.
And of course, that includes model village historian Tim Dunn.
Is it what you expected? Everything I wanted and more.
People joke about the little model villages quite a lot, and there's a lot to joke about them. They are inherently funny. You know, the interplay of scale and obsession is inherently funny. Enthusiasm is inherently funny. I'm well aware of that.
Miniatures have been around forever. And just because they show up in a different form, that doesn't mean they're not doing something similar or playing on, riffing on previous miniatures.
This is Matera, Italy. A 7,000-year-old city carved out of the soft stone by generation after generation of artisans. They called it the Sassi of Matera.
Dall'età di 10 anni io ho sempre amato i sassi. Sì, già da piccolino giravo per i sassi, ho abitato nei sassi. Quindi questo amore verso la mia città e anche il bisogno di lavoro mi ha indotto a creare queste sculture. In Italia e nel mondo ci sono molti cattolici che fanno il presepe. Le nostre miniature, come Matera, è un piccolo presepe. Tutta Matera è scavata in questa roccia. Una roccia calcarea, di origine marina. E questa è proprio l'arte del togliere e non del costruire, come hanno fatto i nostri antenati quando hanno scavato questa bellissima città.
This is a souvenir. We like to bring back the experience and put it on our mantelpiece. You know, objects like this make us remember the experience, the lived experience of having been to see the Tower of Pisa, and the first thing we do is, I want to take something like that back with me so that I will remember it. We really fear that memory is evanescent, and that the only way to reconstruct our world of memory is to have mementos.
And they have as much meaning invested in them as the larger structures.
It's just another busy day at Hamburg's busiest tourist attraction. Miniature Wonderland is the largest model railway in the world. It all began as a city's tribute to itself.
This is our miniature Hamburg. It's one of the first sections we opened up in Miniature Wonderland.
Christiana Kruger and hundreds of other employees have done their city proud by meticulously recreating it.
Take the train and Miniature Wonderland is right over there.
Hamburg was just the beginning. Year by year, the Wunderland has grown to include other countries and even other continents. Why would anyone do all this?
It was a crazy idea from my brother because we worked in nightlife. We had a nightclub together. I was very happy with the nightclub, and he was not. And he was on holiday, had the idea to build the biggest model railroad in the world, gave me a phone call, and I said, "You're crazy."
But somehow, Friedrich convinced Garrett to sell the nightclub.
So many people told us, give me the money, you will lose it. You won't have any chance to get 100,000 visitors in the first year. That was our key point we had to achieve. But it was 300,000 visitors the first year.
To date, over 12 million have visited. To everyone's surprise, Gerrit and Friedrich have created a multi-million euro business out of a basement hobby.
Normally, model layouts, it's a scene standing there for years and years. No. We have to find something for the whole family. We have to tell stories, crazy stories, stupid stories, happy stories, all stories the life can give us.
We have the model trains for the train enthusiasts, but there's always something to discover. You push a button here, and then somewhere in the layout, something would happen.
Below the pretty scenery is a complex computer-controlled animation system.
And the battery in the car is being recharged through this charging station.
We were not sure if it would be possible to achieve because 12 hours a day, 365 days a year, and the cars and the trains and the planes are running the whole day. We have to find the solution that it works every time. We don't want to have only accidents.
Which is why they built this high-tech miniature monitoring system. Geta Art is in charge.
I'm looking for the trains, or for the cars, and for the planes, that everything is good.
Gitta and her team are constantly monitoring the 13 kilometers of track in the Wunderland.
Now we have an emergency. I take a look.
Gitta must move quickly and quietly to fix the problem and disperse the gawking crowd.
So many people are here, and you must go round, and it's tricky. So, Entschuldigung, ich muss hier mal eben bitte ran. Darf ich da mal hin? This train is not the right way for him, but it's no big problem. So. Ja, okay, alles gut.
Also, dass das Flugzeug immer noch wackelt beim Landen.
Meanwhile, Gerrit is checking up on the Wonderland's latest expansion. This is the world's first working miniature international airport. And it's Gerrit's labor of love.
When I look back at creating this airport, when somebody could have shown me these images I now see at these days, I will.
Not only was it a monumental building task, but Gerrit and his team had to invent the technology to animate it.
We were crazy and we thought, yes, we can do it like in the real world. Then we contacted the real airport in Hamburg, and we had to learn how an airport is working.
It didn't take them long to discover the complexity and scale of the project ahead of them.
We thought it needs 2 years to build it, but in the beginning, 2 or 3 months later, we knew maybe 4 years. And I started to create the computer programs, and the other guys started to find technical solutions, and all together it took 5 years. We had so many challenges to solve.
The biggest being how to give the illusion of miniature aircraft taking off and landing. It took them years to perfect it.
I remember the first flight, and the whole team was standing in front of this naked machine, and a model flew over the layout. And what's Gänsehaut? Wie? Goosebumps.
Gerrit and his team of builders face so many different challenges.
Ich habe im November 2006 damit angefangen. Durch ein kleines Malheur ist ja die Steuerelektronik leider von dem Flugzeug gerade vernichtet. Deswegen muss ich ihn mit der Hand
He
schieben.
posted them on YouTube and discovered a huge audience, riveted by their trials and tribulations.
People all over the world are curious to watch us working. That's amazing. But the whole work and the challenges are starting now because we want to have these models behaving like in the real world. So we have to arrange all the behaviors of the models, and they have to work.
By the time the airport was ready to open, hundreds of thousands around the world were eagerly anticipating it.
Das ist die schlimmste Zeit. Es ist alles fertig, es muss auch alles fertig sein. Ändern kann man jetzt sowieso nichts mehr. In 30 Minuten geht's los und ich habe keine Aufgabe mehr, außer zu warten und mich schön mit meiner Nervosität zu beschäftigen.
3. Der Flughafen ist hiermit eröffnet.
And with the flip of a switch, another first for the Brown brothers and their ever-expanding miniature wonderland.
I'm not like other street artists that do massive murals and bigger work. I like the opposite idea of street art. That hardly anyone would see the thing and only one person might see it. Miniatures in general are inherently cute, and people respond to them in that way. I kind of use that to put different messages underneath. You can sneak things in.
He goes by the moniker Slinkachoo. But finding his miniature art in the streets of London is nearly impossible.
I didn't really think people would have such an empathetic response to them. And it's like, oh, look at that cute, tiny little character. They're about to be just crushed on the streets, you know? It does open up that world of possibilities that actually, yeah, they are really small and there's so much you can comment on about how we feel. I can be quite an anxious person, and I find it quite therapeutic to work very small. I like to imagine that people will find the work and they'll just be surprised and intrigued at finding miniature figures under their feet.
Miniaturization itself is a kind of a code. This is a form of tactile communication. They can be exported across time, across space. So that's what we're doing here. We're compressing information. But what happens still is magical to us.
In the 11th arrondissement in Paris, Maïssa Toulet is out hunting for some miniature inspiration.
When I go to a shop or a market, I don't know what I'm looking for. My unconscious is talking to me through the objects, you know? I like this for real. If I find something that interests me, I take it because I might use it years later. Sometimes I'm looking for a miniature because of its shape, because I know how I could transform it. And when I find a toy or a sculpture, I'm just thinking of how I might use it to do what I want. This area is where I put all my miniatures. These are my favorite ones, and I want to see them very often. I dream about them, and they're like a family. For me, the miniatures are like colors for a painter. Sometimes I just need the head and not the body, and another time I will need the body and not the head. It multiplies the possibilities. Usually I buy figurines that already have strong meaning. I want to play with that and show that things are sometimes different. What I like is to make fun of all this cliché that we have about the miniatures. What I do is link two objects together because they have something in common, and then you will find a link also with the meaning. I don't want to be heavy in my work. I don't want to make lessons about things. I would like to say serious things in a light way. And I think that miniatures can be useful for that. I know that what I do is not considered as serious art, but I wanted to find, I think, a language of my own. It's the only part of my life where I master everything.
The views of Lyon, France, from the basilica high atop the old town, are breathtaking, but not everyone could see them. Not until watchmaker Philippe Carré helped to create this.
On voulait que les personnes aveugles puissent accéder au patrimoine. On voulait aussi mettre l'art urbain, une maquette comme ça, une sculpture sur l'espace public qui soit accessible à aux handicapés, quelles que soient leurs différences.
C'est l'eau avec des poules, là, il y a un...
Et dans la mesure où, lorsqu'elles sont autour de la maquette, il y a un travail de sensibilisation par les autres personnes du fait qu'une personne aveugle peut, elle aussi, voir quelque chose.
Voilà, c'est intéressant. Alors j'ai découvert quelque chose d'extraordinaire quand j'ai découvert ce plan pour la première fois. Je suis Christian Cordier. J'ai perdu la vue à 12 ans et je suis venu à Lyon quelques années après. Au même titre que quelqu'un qui voit le plan de la ville, la personne le découvre avec ses doigts, il voit le plan de la ville. Alors, si je descends de la basilique, je trouve ici la cathédrale Saint-Jean, le fameux crayon dont tout le monde parle. Donc cette exploration tactile lui permettra d'explorer petit quartier par quartier, avec une vue d'ensemble, si je puis dire, plus juste, plus précise qu'en s'y promenant à pied. On finit par se faire une image mentale des différents quartiers où on circule et de la ville dans son ensemble. Ça, c'est vraiment une très grande satisfaction, une très grande surprise et une très grande satisfaction.
Je connais Dan Holman depuis 25 ans et j'ai été le voir parce que je savais que c'était peut-être en France la seule personne qui pouvait représenter toute une ville en miniature.
For over 30 years, Dan Ullman has been creating hyper-realistic miniatures of real places.
J'étais ébéniste et décorateur d'intérieur pendant 20 ans. Et un jour, j'ai voulu faire des décors de théâtre. Et quand on fait des décors de théâtre, grandeur nature, hein, le réalisateur, le metteur en scène nous demande une maquette. Et là, j'ai découvert la puissance du volume. Et alors tout doucement, j'ai laissé tomber mon métier d'ébéniste pour devenir miniaturiste.
Every year, Dan's urge to miniaturize manifests itself in another astonishing work. But there was a problem. What to do with it all?
En France, la miniature n'est pas énormément connue en dehors d'un esprit un petit peu enfant, un petit peu maison de poupée. Et les personnes ne connaissent pas l'art de la miniature.
So Dan started his own museum.
Bienvenue au musée de la miniature.
A museum dedicated to presenting miniature art in ways to maximize the miniature experience.
J'ai fondé un musée de miniature parce que tout simplement mes pièces ne sont pas exposées dans les galeries d'art dans le monde. Moi j'aime les pièces longues. Je ne veux pas m'arrêter à la dimension pour pouvoir avoir des perspectives formidables. Moi, je ne veux pas être arrêté et donc j'ai la chance d'avoir mon propre musée. Je suis mon acheteur. Et là, la personne qui me dit, mais j'ai rêvé, alors je le vois parce qu'elle peut rester, mais 10 minutes devant la même scène comme ça, avec les mains contre la vitre à regarder. Voilà, c'est une zone où il y a 20 ans de miniature, de mon travail personnel. C'est d'autres artistes. Là, je vous parlais tout à l'heure des univers de Ronan James Sevelek. Ça, c'est Alan Bolson, un miniaturiste de New York.
You're going to come and see the trains.
Angus Foggy has brought his family for a visit.
For once, the world's not chaotic. This one piece of the world is going to be just the way it ought to be.
C'est pas la même chose qu'un tableau. Vous voyez, je ne sais pas comment expliquer ça. Il y a une émotion qui va être une émotion un petit peu mystique, une émotion sentimentale. Il y a la pensée magique là-dedans. Que ce que je fais, où je veux qu'on soit envahi par l'aspect hyper réaliste d'un lieu.
This one is aged, so that then the chaos of the real world has been represented in this controlled world. The random nature raging is perfectly reproduced.
Vous voyez une pièce comme celle-là, c'est un lieu abandonné. Et ces lieux abandonnés où il n'y a eu aucune envie d'art dedans, aucun esprit artistique dedans. Mais c'est souvent même la rigueur, le côté underground, le côté abandonné, avec les teintes anciennes, avec les lumières qui passent comme ça fragilement, et bien, qui donnent déjà un aspect artistique involontaire. Ça, je suis très ému par l'aspect artistique involontaire que donne le temps. Ça fait 25 ans que je fais cela aujourd'hui sur Lyon. Aujourd'hui, il m'arrive de voir une maman qui a 25 ans avec son enfant et qui me dit « Moi, j'étais toute petite, je tenais la main de ma maman autrefois et vous étiez mon génie du quartier. » Donc j'ai franchement l'habitude depuis 25 ans de Oui, de faire plaisir avec des choses assez sympathiques à regarder.
Anything that's scaled has a power to almost instantly connect you to something that's happening there. It's why architects make models of their buildings. It's impossible to get somebody to understand what your building is going to look like just from drawings. But you make a model of it and people can start pointing to parts they like and don't like and what works and how the light affects it and so on.
In an empty fountain in the center of Vienna lies a miniature city like no other. This massive model of a 21st century sustainable city is actually a protest miniature.
The whole thing started in our living room last year when we were watching television, the news.
University students Lucas and Diana were shocked to learn that their government had spent 19 billion euros to save a failing bank.
I was a little bit frustrated because there were no big demonstrations, no loud voices against this scandal. We were feeling a little bit of powerlessness. Yeah. We thought we
were shocked.
Yes.
We were shocked because we thought, well, there are going to be so many demonstrations on the streets, but there was like nothing, no reaction from the Austrian population. Nobody can or knows how much money it is because nobody has ever been in touch with such great sums.
The two architecture students tried to put the staggering amount into perspective. They calculated that 19 billion euros could build 60,000 family homes. And that's when the idea dawned on them.
For us as architecture students, it's very important to have something physical in front of you. Also something which you can touch, you can see, you can feel, a real scale model.
Building a city for 19 billion years is a perfect way to make people understand, because we all live in cities, we work in cities. That's a good scale to make people understand what great loss this is for Austria.
They had their mission, to build a miniature city here in the famous Karlsplatz that will inspire the people to rise up and protest against the government's bank bailout. But first, they had to recruit their team.
I started with my friends. I had a lot of friends that are studying architecture. And some of them said, yeah, cool idea, but I have no time. And the other one said, yeah, cool, I'm in, yeah. And then she brought some friends, and so our group was getting bigger and bigger.
It was very hard in the beginning to imagine what a city could look like for 100,000 people.
The first process is to split up this amount of money in different sectors: housing, like infrastructure, working places, green areas.
Over the next month, they designed a sustainable, car-free green city, and they named it after the failed bank, Hypo.
We didn't have any model yet. We just had the 3D model. We put them online and got so many messages, telephone calls from different people, complete strangers.
Immediately I wanted to be part of it because I thought it's genius.
For Barbara Law, even though it was a miniature city, it was full of real-scale possibilities.
I studied civil engineering. We worked with all kinds of different people, architects and landscape planners. I learned how to work in a big team, and it was really interesting to get this diversity.
The project is super complicated, 3,300 different pieces with 150 different sizes, and the whole model has more than 70 tons.
The concrete idea was my idea because I was learning about concrete material. And I thought, well, this idea is very profound or very heavy, and also the concrete is very heavy. But every block we put in Hippotopia represents something. For instance, there is a children's daycare center in the basement and residential spaces on the upper floors. The human scale is the most important in Hippotopia City.
Ja, genau. Und bei der Nuller müsste man beim Berg genau vorbeikommen, oder?
When you see hundreds of concrete blocks, you wouldn't say it would be a city. But when we transported them and started to put each block on its position, we started to realize it's a city.
Okay, eigentlich würde ich gern viel mehr machen.
I was feeling proud because we accomplished this project, but also a bit worried how the reactions will be, if it will have the effect that we wished for. So I was also kind of anxious. But in the end, it all worked out.
In die Ausstellung Hypotopia
des Bundespräsidenten sein erster Eindruck.
It's super nice to stand there with the Austrian president on the rooftop of our stadium and speak about our project. You cannot do this in real.
Ist eine gute Idee von Studierenden und daher muss man sich damit auseinandersetzen.
The children used our city as playground, and the city should be a playground for everyone.
There was a small girl, she was playing, and then the next day the mother sent us a picture. With stones she had and paper, she created her own city, her own Hypotopia. I guess maybe we had an impact on some people that will show in a couple of years.
We decided to organize a funeral for our city, to invite all the people to Karlsplatz, to bring some candles.
After 3 weeks and thousands of visitors, Hippotopia must come to an end.
It was one of the most emotional evenings we spent there.
It was the last moment we saw it,
Yes.
and it made us happy somehow that we realized that we made it till this point, but it made us sad also because these 3 weeks of exhibition, they went so fast.
Yes.
They were gone so fast, and then we knew we have to bury it, and
Their miniature city had captured the imagination of Vienna and the hearts of those who built it. But what about the protest they'd hoped to inspire with their miniature city?
the day afterwards, we had a march to the parliament. We invited as many people as possible to join us, to take and carry some concrete blocks to the parliament.
Their miniature city worked. And these students have discovered the unique powers of the miniature. They've inspired a city to protest and taught lessons that may last for generations. may be small and seem unimportant, but their impact is profound.
The innate joy of seeing something small that you can actually walk around and interacting with it, that's something you can't do with a helmet over your head, sort of giving you a 3D view.
There is this need to miniaturize our world.
The miniature is a way that we work things out as human beings.
Miniatures are not simply toys. They are the world's oldest art and an intimate part of the human experience.
That your work might actually just be justification for having a large car collection?
Yes, Father.
In school, in elementary school, if the teacher said you could read a book and write a book report or take a shoebox and make a diorama, I made the diorama. Miniatures what got me through school.
I always loved architecture. Even as a kid, I used to carry a sketchbook and I would draw little floor plans, and my mother would ask me, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm drawing a house." And so one day I saw a miniature store and it intrigued me, and I went in and I saw the doll houses. And I thought, I've got to have one of those. And I was very young, but I said, I'm going to save up and I'm going to get this kit, and I did.
When I was a kid, I had a miniature collection, and I would actually stage exhibits for my family. When I got this job, my mom said it was fate. Yeah.
So I didn't have a dollhouse as a little girl, although I played with dolls, Barbies, and made Barbie houses and so on. When I went to Disneyland in California, there was a real focus on miniatures. And so I went to Knott's Berry Farm, which had a miniature museum at that time, and just absolutely fell in love with perfectly scaled, 1/12 scale miniatures.
Yeah, I was completely addicted to Lego. Yeah. For me, it was the Christmas day was the most important day the whole year, because I really expected a new Lego thing for my city, for my boats, for my harbor.
I'm a fan of, Alice in Wonderland. So I remember when Alice shrunk and she grew and she, and all that stuff. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna make the whole thing. So I made the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, Alice, the Mad Hatter, the hair. So I'm lifting Alice to put her on, to sit down in the table. And my cell phone went off. And I went like this, what is that? And I inhaled Alice.
I had one friend, a boy, who had G.I. Joe dolls. And once I saw him taking a hammer and breaking his G.I. Joe dolls. That was really one of my most striking memories of my childhood. Seeing him doing that, daring to do that.
People ask me, how can you leave the figures? How can you leave them on the streets? Isn't that really sad, And I'm like, they're just bits of plastic. Really, they're just bits of plastic.
The whole Wonderland, there's a spirit, it's our spirit. It's a little bit, we go through the world and see something, put it on our layout, but it's a little bit like playing God.
You can't really care what people think of you if you go into a career like this. And I think tied to that is the fact that, I drive a 1994 Honda Civic. I don't really care, I don't really care what you think of my car. That car represents the fact that I paid off my student loans. To me, that car is an outward manifestation of my fiscal responsibility, So even when I, become a billionaire with my miniature cottage industry, I will not be driving whatever on earth people are driving.